Welcome to the New Do Review Podcast, Season 1, Episode 3. I'm calling this episode Corrosion of our Conformity. Or no, let's call it the corrosion of our conformity. You can probably hear me typing, and we're going to talk about that in just a second because that all connects into the housekeeping business of what this show is, what we're going to be doing, and how it all works. I guess like a table of contents in a way. So, the episode, The Corrosion of Our Conformity. If you know that those two names, corrosion and conformity, you probably already know what this episode is going to be about. And that's cool. If you know that, you're probably the target audience, and you're gonna like this episode because it's somewhat tragic, but also a positive thing too, because we'll be getting to talk about something that I feel pretty strongly about and that I'm very passionate about as well too. So I'm gonna leave you hanging, and we're gonna do the housekeeping business. Because we'll get that out of the way as quick as we can. I just want to make sure the mic is so there it is. It's recording. I always got to double check as I sync this up with the camera and the microphone to make sure it's recording, because sometimes it doesn't and you have to redo it. I've already done a rehearsal of this particular podcast, and I feel like it's going to be, so this is the live, this is it, this is the performance. I already did the dress rehearsal. Okay, so the housekeeping business is this. If you're hearing the podcast, you're also being recorded on video for YouTube. The same version of this gets uploaded to YouTube as a video. So I have a camera pointing at me right now, just taking the video. The audio is going to come from the camera, so the audio is going to sound a little bit different. So you have two technically different pieces of content from that. I think that's kind of interesting. Okay, so a lot of what you're going to hear may be a little humorous because I'm going to do things to the camera that just won't make sense in audio. So I'll probably make reference to that, and it could be a little bit of a joke. So maybe that's just who I am. That's my sense of humor. Okay, I'm just going to make sure the mic is, there it is. It's stable. Okay. All right. So if you're seeing this on video, you'll realize that there's like a bed sheet behind me, and I was typing on the keyboard. What's all that about? Well, I want to do this episode in front of a computer so I can have access to information a little bit quicker. Sorry, I was moving the mic toward my face. So I've access to information a little bit quicker than on my phone. Just sitting on the couch with my phone, I felt a little disadvantaged when I was talking about the bands that I appreciate and going through the topics that I enjoy. So I felt that maybe, what if I did this in front of the computer? Could I do it better? My dress rehearsal said, that it's absolutely a better experience, at least for me, and probably for the listeners, because I can talk more fluently about the bands because I have access to basically Wikipedia. That's really what I'm using here. Sorry, this is still part of the housekeeping. You're probably going like, oh, just get on with it. Come on. But no, hold up. I'm going to be leaving some. I try to have tidbits of information in sort of every corner of this. But Wikipedia, for at least bands in terms of specific data points like dates, it tends to be pretty accurate, or at least accurate enough to use within discourse, something like this, conversationally. Some of the facts may be sort of half-truths, but, that's just how Wikipedia is, right? But what I find is that it does at least have accurate information when it comes to discographies and partially personnel as well, like who's in the band and all that. So that's what I'm drawing from, is just Wikipedia files, and it's kind of fun too, just to kind of hop around and go to page. You can kind of get lost in a lot of music that way. So that's part of the housekeeping. So yeah, I've got a bed sheet behind me. I wanted to kind of change up the look of the background. Right now, basically it's my head beside. There's like a door to my left. So I'm using the video. Excuse me. So there's like a white door, and then my head is sort of in front of this ceiling fan of my stove. So I wanted to kind of create a background that, I don't know, looks okay, but has interesting things in it maybe to, you know, if you're watching this on video, I don't know, maybe it does something. Maybe I should work a little harder at changing the background. So this is cool. I've already got some growth happening on the channel in terms of, you know, backgrounds and stuff. The audio will still be the same. I can't really evolve that unless I just get better at speaking, which I hope I do, because I still and ah. I misspeak a lot. I repeat myself sometimes, but it's part of the improvisational experience that I want to deliver, and I want to just be able to candorously talk about music and the bands that I like, share my experience. And to do that, I feel just requires that improvisational level. To script it out would kind of, I don't know, I would lose some of the magic that sometimes happens. Because there was actually a lot of cool things that I found out during the dress rehearsal last night that I can now incorporate into this. And then I also assume that that's going to evolve as I talk about it in real time too, which I find kind of exciting but also fascinating. I haven't showered yet. That's the funny part about podcasts. You can't tell if I've showered or even if I'm wearing pants. I am wearing pants. I can assure you that. I'm fully clothed. I just haven't showered. But I wanted to do this just so I could get some natural light from outside, mainly for the sake of video. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. That, you know, I could have showered and then did this, but I don't know. I wanted to really get into it because I think it's going to be fun talking about this topic. Again, you know, like I said, it's a little tragic, but that's part of it. So we're almost done with the housekeeping. So the other part of the housekeeping is talking about affiliate marketing, monetization, and sort of how that works. So who I'm speaking to right now would probably be content creators, musicians, artists, just creators in general of digital content. Monetizing your work is somewhat of the end goal. You know, if you're a musician and you make records, you want to get paid for that work. This is kind of the same concept. So, you know, doing podcasting, making content for YouTube, there's got to be some way that the compensation can be then reinvested back into the product, and that's what the affiliate marketing is all about. So I am as part of the Amazon Associates program, and the links that I put in the YouTube videos and as well as the article on my website all connect back to products that are being used in this video. I'm treating it more almost like a liner note of what it takes to put this production together. You know, because I think back to some of the records. One record in particular, I remember looking at the Peace Sells, But Who's Buying by Megadeth record, actually incorporated in the liner notes the brands of guitars they used. They were using BC Rich equipment at that time, and that was interesting to know. It was actually very informative for me when I was reading that to know that fact. Otherwise, you know, I wouldn't have been able to tell that those are BC Rich guitars. I would just have to, you know, find out or, you know, get pictures of them playing live to maybe infer that that was what's used on the recording. But they specified that in the liner notes. So that's a cool little Easter egg. You should check that out. I am not 100% sure if that's true, but I'm going to leave that for you, because maybe that'll be an enjoyable experience for you to go confirm that or disprove it. So there you go. Okay, so the H1 Zoom handy mic is what I'm recording the voice with. I've got a Canon camera that captures the video, some run-of-the-mill Sony headphones so I can hear my voice, and then my all-powerful, you can't see this, podcast people, I'm sorry, but the YouTube people can. It's my purple Rubbermaid water bottle to stay hydrated. Talking, from what I've experienced, is quite difficult. I need some water already. Just speaking for a period of time, it's quite challenging. So you always need to have like water, basically have something to drink. And so that water bottle, without it, I literally couldn't do this type of content, do the videos. So in a way, this is probably one of the most important pieces of equipment that I used to put this all together. So that started off as a joke, actually, when I was first doing these as just YouTube videos. But it totally makes sense. Okay, so yeah, if you click on any of the links, I get commission for that. And then, that goes towards, being reinvested back into the product to make this better, to grow this. And so, this is more or less a quest to monetize and become a brand or an entity that produces content and can be compensated for that. Hopefully I get to a point where this all gets attention and maybe things change. I don't know. This is more of a documentary process as well too, and I'm treating that as such for the time being. As I grow and get better, because this is all new to me, I just looked up how to do a podcast, and here we are, like a few weeks later, basically in February. It all comes from basically the pressure of social media, of making different types of content. Podcasting is just another platform to enter your content into, if it translates to a podcast, which me talking on a couch for 2 hours does. I just sit. The videos that I did on YouTube is just me on a couch talking for about an hour and a half about music or other things. So I thought, well, I guess I should do the podcast. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the housekeeping. If you want to know more about me, I didn't even introduce myself. It's me, Brent. I'm the webmaster of New Do Review, as well as the primary content creator of New Do Review podcast and the YouTube channel. I run all the socials, pretty much do it all. So it's just me behind the brand. So there it is. What qualifies me to talk about music? Well, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Music Composition, and I was a musician for most of my life, starting at 14, going on to, I guess now, I'm in my mid-30s. So music has been pretty much, I would say most of, at least half of my life, I guess, if I do the math, just over half of my life. I did sales and marketing for a little while. That got me into blogging and affiliate marketing, which kind of puts me here on the seat now talking to you about music. So if you're curious to know, who is this? Who is this guy? Why is he talking about music? Why does he think he can talk about music in an expert, almost academic way? Maybe. Well, yeah. I've got the paperwork to prove it, and the experience, and I want that to be given freely to the audience. I want to share that with you. I want to share my insights. As far as my personality goes, I've learned that I'm a little unique. I tend to have different opinions on just things in the world. I tend to see things a little bit differently, but anyone can say that too, and that's the point. Really, the actual point is to share your subjective experience with things for the world, because you don't know if that same experience is held by somebody else, because if it is, then you can create a connection that way. So that's kind of the point. And then if you're wondering, well, I also do music, can I talk about music too? Yeah, absolutely. You could do whatever you want. The point is being yourself and being open to an audience and sharing yourself with them, basically, and sharing your experience. Because someone could do the same thing as me and have a completely different result, get different reactions, and that's pretty much the point. And I really, whoa, my computer's, oh, it's my USB. The point is basically, just to do it. And plus, I want to be able to at least record this and have this as sort of a proof of something I've done in the past. Because by the time I get to 60, my taste will change again. I'll like different things. I'll have different opinions. So at least this will be able to serve as a way for me to just have captured my ideas and opinions right now. So we're about 14 minutes in. That's enough for the housekeeping. You know enough about me to get into this. So this podcast is going to be about the band Corrosion of Conformity, and it sort of serves as a way to just pay respects to the passing of Reed Mullin, their drummer who recently passed away in late January. So we'll do a quick moment of silence for that. There we go. A funny thing too about music is that you can take that silence as something tangible, as a room tone or spatial noise. I don't know. Depends on your definition of what music could be, but that's an interesting tidbit. Also, too, that moment of silence is also dedicated to Neil Peart, the fantastic drummer of Rush, who also recently passed in January too. So this is kind of a I guess we're doing double respects in that case. Both two really good drummers. Neil Peart was by far one of the most influential drummer that I guess I can possibly think of. When it comes to drummers, Neil Peart's an influence for almost every drummer that I've ever known. I hate to make those types of statements. I don't like universal statements that much because they tend to not be correct. But as far as I know, it's fairly accurate. All the drummers I've ever worked with, know about Rush. Their degrees of appreciation for Rush tend to differ. But yeah, and Neil Peart was definitely one of the best. And Reed Mullin, he's right up there. But I feel that his drumming has gone relatively, I wouldn't say unknown, because that's also incorrect, because Corrosion of Conformity does have an incredible fan base, but when you I guess compare it to everything else, because the music world is so large, and Rush has had such a long time to develop their identity, but I don't really want to start doing the comparison game, but both incredible drummers. And if you listen to Corrosion of Conformity's discography, which you can, I will have links of all of this in the article that you can go to, and you can enjoy all that music on Spotify for free, basically. So you can hear his drumming, and then you'll actually hear how incredible he was as a drummer. Okay, so we've already kind of got into it. So we're talking about Corrosion of Conformity, the band, aka COC, Corrosion of Conformity. They're a very interesting band, and they connect into some of the previous concepts from the last episode, where I was talking about ensemble format, pedigree, or maybe influence. Who listens to what? Excuse me. Oh, I just had a sandwich. And Corrosion of Conformity connects to all of that, because they've had such an interesting lineup history, and also a history of how they've changed their sound. And I'm trying to think, but I don't think there's any band quite like Corrosion of Conformity that have undergone the changes that they have. And as we talk about it, you're going to find out what exactly that is. I was lucky enough to see Corrosion of Conformity in their quartet form, and that's basically Reed Mullin, Mike Dean on bass, Woody Weatherman on lead guitar, and Pepper Keenan on rhythm guitar, also lead as well, and vocals. That's the most fans would consider that the sort of primary identity of the band. So I got to see them a few years ago here in Vancouver. They basically went on tour with no new album. They were making the album. It was going to come out the next year, and they crushed it. They I think they sold out the venue. I'm not 100% sure, but man, there's a lot of people, and all of them were just so stoked to see Corrosion of Conformity. Like I said, no new songs. They just went and played their old stuff, and everyone loved it, including me. We'll talk about that again with another band, because that's a cool concept. It's almost dangerous to go out on the road and do a big tour without anything new to promote except yourself. And so you have to rely on the band's reputation to sell tickets, put people in your seats. And Corrosion of Conformity did that. They went out and proved, yeah, look, our reputation as a band is so strong that we can just play our old songs and basically crush it. And they absolutely did. They played a lot of their back catalog, and man, it was absolutely awesome. I got to hear them play "Vote with a Bullet," which is one of the first songs I got to hear. Actually, that was one of my first introductions to the band, and so they played that, and the whole place lit up like a Christmas tree. It was just incredible. Okay, so yeah, that kind of starts it off there. So where do we go with Corrosion of Conformity now? So we'll connect the whole Rush connection into Corrosion of Conformity. You'll see how that's done in just a second. So Corrosion of Conformity, they started in the early 80s, basically in 1982, and they were a band until around 2006. They had a hiatus until 2010, and then they've kept going with their career. They have a new drummer named John Green, who is currently doing drums with them to fill in for Reed Mullin, which is pretty cool. So they're still going. That's a weird thing, because like what do you do when someone who started the band pretty much, Woody Weatherman and Reed Mullin and Mike Dean pretty much started the band in the 80s. So what do you do when you have lost one of the original members? Do you keep going? Do you stop? There's really no good answer, but to keep the music going does it pays respect to the people who've been in the band previously and the people who've have been lost, basically. And so that's kind of how I see it, is we will still be able to in the future get to experience their music. Hopefully maybe we'll have some more albums from them in the future. Hard to say, but yeah, that's something to talk about, right? What do you do? I don't know. You just have to see what happens. Every band is different, right? So there it is. So Corrosion started in 1982 as a trio. Well, actually, not a trio. They did have a singer named Eric Ike, Eycke. I think that's how they pronounced it. And so they did their first album called Eye for an Eye in '84, and then they did their next album in '85 called Animosity. And so that was done as a power trio, just like Rush. Mike Dean was singing; he's the bass player. Woody Weatherman on guitar, Reed Mullin on drums, and then I guess all the band, kind of pitched in and did, I guess backup vocals. Reed Mullin, I think, did some backup vocals. So that's pretty cool to see. So they started off as a power trio, like a power punk trio, similar to the Rush ensemble format, but also similar to Venom. Who remembers Venom? I'm going to look that up and bring up their Wikipedia page, because, well, guess what? They have the exact same format: bass, vocals, guitar, drums, right? Trio. They were sort of a more, they were classified as like new wave British heavy metal or maybe black metal, but when you listen to it, it has a feeling of punk, I guess. Maybe in a more traditional way. I don't like the word tradition because I don't know if it means what it should. But like the first real wave of like good punk music in the late '70s and early '80s. So, that's where Venom was from in terms of their time period. So Corrosion of Conformity was kind of like Venom almost, but being a southern band, coming from a completely different part of the world, Venom is an English band, so you have sort of a very interesting concept of the diaspora of sound. Diaspora usually relates to people moving, the origin of a civilization moving to a different part of the world. But in a way, if you just pretend it's music being traveled, then I don't know. It kind of makes you think. I probably use that word incorrectly, and I could get in academic trouble or get put into academic jail, maybe. But I like that word because it does connect with a lot of ethnomusicology concepts of people traveling the world and moving around and spreading music to all corners of the earth. So just having you know what that word means, I think is valuable because you could go look it up and sort of start to make your own connections. And I'd rather you know that word maybe in a different context than not know that word. So there you go. I'll leave it at that. I won't belabor the academics of it until maybe later if you want it. You could always give me an email and tell me what you want to hear. Very easy to find on my website. So there's that. Okay, so Corrosion of Conformity, trio punk band, kind of sounds like Venom. You know, they have that power trio format until 1991 with their, I guess, maybe more major label, I guess you could say, because they were re-released on Columbia in 1995. In 1991, they were, let's see, they're Relativity Records, I guess that's what it was. So maybe not major label debut, but another label debut nonetheless. So 1991, things changed a lot in the band. Mike Dean left the group, leaving Reed Mullin and Woody Weatherman as the original members. And then Pepper Keenan came in as rhythm guitar and backing vocals, Phil Swisher on bass, and Carl Agel to take over as lead vocals. So they were a 5-piece band after being a trio for a number of years. And they have a whole new sound. It's not punk. It's more metal. It's more like early 90s metal. I'm not sure how to really describe it. To me, it has some vibes of like maybe White Zombie, I guess, in a way. That's maybe not even a good representation of the sound, but the distortion is heavy and huge, kind of like how Astro Creep was, but it's really chunky and riffy. They're down tuning to drop C, so the whole guitar is tuned down full step. Motley Crue plays in that tuning, by the way, if you didn't know. That's kind of cool. And then they would just, for bass and guitar, you just take the E string and drop it down another step, so you're down to C. So you get drop D, but a whole step more. That's kind of cool to talk about as well, because as you become and learn more about your instrument as a guitar or bassist, you have to understand tunings and alternate tunings and how they work and why they're used and all that. I mean, really, just to get a heavier sound, a more chunky, deeper, bigger sound, drop C, like it's huge. The E string rattles a lot more and you get some chunkiness, and so the album was a lot heavier because of that. They were tapping into different influences, moving a little bit away from the punk, but not losing the punk spirit. The name still remains Corrosion of Conformity, which I think is a really cool political statement. It's, just those two words, corrosion, conformity, conforming to the regular norm, but corrosion, corroding that idea, meaning of rebellion. The corroding the concept of conformity. Like, why should you conform to the norm if that doesn't make sense for you, for whatever reason? So it's got a cool punk rebellious spirit embedded into the name, and I love it. Because the first time I heard the name, I was just in my mind like, yeah, like awesome. I don't have enough middle fingers for that, like it makes you it empowers you, especially as a teenage, in your teenage angst years. Everyone can relate to that to some degree. You're angsty as a young person, wanting to rebel and understand the world through rebellion. So, to me that's what punk always meant, is going against the grain. And Corrosion of Conformity, the name itself, that's what it says to me, and that captured me immediately. And so the name remains. The album is called Blind. That's kind of cool too, because that sort of implies that maybe people or the public is blind to what's happening around them, and they're just accepting the reality in it, and they're not fighting back. They're not rebelling when they should. Those things, and then you get to their, I guess, hit single, "Vote with a Bullet." That's what I heard first on Much Music Loud late one Friday night. Boom, Corrosion of Conformity comes on, and I'm just sitting in my seat like a jet engine is blowing air in my face. Just like, oh my god, what is this? This is so awesome. I'm just a kid. Whoa, great. And then there's another song called Dance of the Dead, where Eyehategod was the lead vocalist, and Pepper Keenan was actually the singer on Vote with a Bullet. So it was weird because the ensemble was like, you had somebody else in the band was singing on the hit, but the album had a different singer. So it was kind of weird. I don't know. When I talk about ensemble format, I think of Corrosion of Conformity and how unique that is. And so, the album has more of like a metal thrashiness to this. It's sort of like how Metallica evolved from being like a technical thrash group, with the Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, and Justice and all that, to how they sound on the Black Album. That's kind of how Corrosion of Conformity sounded in 1991. The tempos were a little fast, huge riffs. But I don't know if that's a good way to describe it, because it's still more complex. As much as I like to simplify things for people, I still like to remind that it's always more complex too, and I feel it is. But that's where the power of listening can come into play, in your own subjective experiences. Go listen to that album. It sounds really good. There's a lot of cool guitar tones on that album, so check it out. So the band went on for a few years with that lineup until things changed. Mike Dean came back for bass, and Pepper Keenan became the lead vocalist. Eyehategod left the band, so that was only a 5-piece for a few years, and then they went on to record Deliverance in '94 and Wise Blood in '96. Those two are sort of their pivotal albums, I would say, to reinforce the lineup, the quartet that we all know and love. Pepper on vocals, Woody on lead guitar, Reed Mullin drums, Mike Dean bass, and occasionally backup vocals and lead vocals too. Mike Dean is an accomplished singer, maybe a more gnarly punk sound in his voice, but that's the cool thing. You've got that range of ability in the band, and that's a very cool thing. The singing is important as well. I connect that into the affiliate offers that I have available in the YouTube videos. Singing and playing the piano. Those are two affiliate offers that I feel strongly about, because I feel it's a necessary musicianship skill to have. So that's why they're part of, I guess, what is it, the description of the video, or no, it's more like a calling card, or I don't know what to call it. Anyways, those are affiliate offers that I stand by, Piano for All and Singorama, because singing is important, right? So, having multiple singers in a band like Corrosion of Conformity does is a cool thing. And it makes the music more interesting. Having just one singer, it's fine, that's cool if that's the way it is, but, bands that have multiple singers tend to be a little bit more interesting. Like a band, let's use Def Leppard as an example. Maybe they don't fit into the sound that we're talking about, but everyone in the group sings, and their songs have a certain edge to them that other metal or rock songs don't. So think about that. So yeah, Deliverance, Wise Blood, 2 really good albums. I didn't really get into Corrosion of Conformity until around the late 90s, early 2000s with America's Volume Dealer. That's the first album I got. And I heard Vote with a Bullet, from '91, around that time too. So I heard Vote with a Bullet first, and then it was like, whoa, who's this band Corrosion? I gotta get one of their albums. What album do they? Okay, America's Volume Dealer is the newest album. I need that, so I got that. I think I got that for Christmas in 2001. I think maybe, or no, it would have been 2000, I guess, because it came out, I think, in the fall around like October or something like that. That was a really cool album. because the album cover was very, very, if I say just cool, I don't know if that really cuts it, because it's mesmerizing. It's like those black and white swirly mesmerizing things. It just says COC, America's Volume Dealer. Like, awesome. Like, that is so cool. And then there's, I guess one of these singles is Congratulations Song. What else? Was there another single? Yeah, Congratulations Song. I guess that was the single. And then there's a promo on Much Music for that was like flashing the album cover, and it was flashing the their I guess mascot logo, which is like a skull with nails sticking out of it. Just awesome, like just so aggressive, and the imagery was great. And I was sold immediately at that point in time. I was like, all right, I need this album. So. It was a weird experience. It was a combination of bits and pieces of Blind and then America's Volume Dealer, and I didn't really experience Deliverance and Wise Blood until after I got into America's Volume Dealer. So that's kind of a cool. There's almost some poetry in there, like America's Volume Dealer. What a cool album name to have, right? Volume Dealer. Yeah, awesome. And so, they went on for a while, and they didn't do another album until 2005, In the Arms of God. That was a pretty cool album. A little bit of a departure from. Well, actually, I'm not sure if it was a departure. Maybe it's just an evolution. You know, I feel like they channeled a lot more Sabbath in that album with the song Stonebreaker. Really reminded me of like Sabbath and like the Heaven and Hell days or something like that. Just like really huge heavy guitars, lots of lead stuff. The singing became more aggressive after 2005. America's Volume Dealer to me almost felt just, you know, like they were trying to write more songs, I guess, more well, because they're still complex songs, they're still really heavy, but I guess that maybe something more popular or mainstream. But those are still like awesome songs on America's Volume Dealer. But compared to Into the Arms of God, it was just like way more aggressive. Songs are longer. They took more liberties. It became more progressive, really. You know. So I'm glad we talked about progressive rock in the previous episode, because now you know, if I say progressive rock, you kind of know what that means. So they became a lot more progressive in that album, In the Arms of God. And Reed Mullin wasn't on that album. It was another drummer, Stanton Moore. Man, I'm glad I get to be in front of a computer like this and I can actually get up, you know, talk about these names and stuff. So yeah, Reed Mullin had to not be in the band for a little while. I think there was some. I'm not sure why. Maybe there was an injury or something, because I can't remember. But anyways, you know, he wasn't on that album. And then at that point, Pepper Keenan went on to go back into Down, you know, sort of like a side project for him, I guess, or maybe that is I don't know if that's primary or secondary. It doesn't really matter. And so Corrosion of Conformity went back into their three-piece and recorded another album in 2012 as the same band, but they were playing more of a kind of their sort of thrashy punkness from the 80s. And so it was Woody Weatherman, Mike Dean on vocals, excuse me, and Reed Mullin. Woody Weatherman, I guess, was doing more backups and background singing for that. And so they changed their sound completely for the 2012 album to be their kind of original punk. So who does that? Like, what band has done that? You know, because I'm trying to think on the spot, and I really can't think of any group that just changes their sound like that. Maybe without starting a new band entirely. And that's the coolest thing about Corrosion, is that they have different identities as a band, right? Because there's the Corrosion as the punk 80s, and then there's Corrosion with Pepper making the quartet. And they sound totally different. So they did that for a little while. So they did a Corrosion of Conformity self-titled in 2012, and then they did another one entitled, let's see, they did one called 9, and that was with, so Pepper Keenan did writing on that one as well too, but let me, yeah, so Mike Dean, vocals. So this was still I guess the three-piece format, but I guess Pepper Keenan came in and did some work with it. And then they finally got back together as a quartet to do No Cross, No Crown in 2008. So that would have been the album that would have been being released after I would have seen them play live. So that was a while ago now, I guess. So how cool is that, right? You know, to go through such drastic change in lineup and sound, and to sort of still maintain a following, an audience, right? So, you know, the audience wouldn't really care. They love the band, so they're going to love both incarnations of the band. And, you know, that there's something to be said about just how powerful the identity of a group really is when it comes to that, you know, because there's a lot of pressure these days in social media and content marketing and content making is to stick to a brand, play out your brand, don't deviate from the brand. But Corrosion of Conformity, they didn't care. They're like, yeah, we were originally a punk band, we became a quartet, but you know, Pepper went off and did another project, so I guess we'll become the punk band again, because, you know, those three guys still want to make music, and that nothing's going to stop them. You know, who cares? They kept the band name, went out and toured, you know, and did extremely well. How ballsy is that? That goes against pretty much all modern conventions of content marketing. They effectively changed the brands, almost sweeping the rug out from fans of the quartet sound. They have a different sound on those albums, but it's still really good. It's still good metal. You know, this is they're primarily a metal band as far as you know, my perception of it is. You could argue that there's more bluesy and stuff, bluesy experiences, especially with Pepper Keenan's you know, guitar playing and writing. Yeah, awesome. You know, Corrosion of Conformity, go against the grain. Yeah, that's pretty much everything I feel connected to. That's, you know, in a way I've sort of lived that lifestyle of always trying to do something a little bit different than the norm. Yeah, just a really good message, I think. And so let's talk about the Pepper Keenan's other collaborations, because then once we do that, you're going to get into a whole world of other bands, musicians, and this is really cool. This is kind of how we ended off the last episode, talking about Tony Levin, Genesis, King Crimson, and that, because Tony Levin is sort of like a key musician that connects you know, Peter Gabriel and Genesis to King Crimson in a way, because Tony Levin played in King Crimson. But Tony Levin also played with Peter Gabriel, who is in Genesis, and, you know, you can kind of go the degrees that way. And so, yeah, and then you get to talk about Adrian Belew and that version of King Crimson. So King Crimson, in a way, is sort of like Corrosion of Conformity, where they've undergone dramatic identity shifts with the ensemble, and still have been incredibly successul because the fans of the group are just, they're diehard fans. They're fans for life, you know. So once you know, once your reputation is strong enough, it's not going to matter what you do, as long as you create something that you believe in wholeheartedly. It's going to do well. You know, you may lose fans because, oh, well, I don't like this. Those weren't the real fans anyways, so let them, you know, let those people go, because your diehard fans will be there forever. And, you know, me as a Corrosion fan, I like them in any incarnation. Like, it's good. The original members, they all have what it takes to make good music, metal music. So yeah. So anyway, so we're sort of off topic there, but yeah. So now let's talk about Down, the southern New Orleans. No, I didn't do the accent. Sorry, that was stupid. I can't do accents. New Orleans metal group featuring Phil Anselmo on vocals, Jimmy Bauer on drums, Kirk Weinstein, who has now returned as the guitar player, Patrick Bruders, who started bass in 2011, taking over from Rex Brown, who took over for Todd Strange. So there's been a lineage of bass players, and Jimmy Bauer on drums. This is a this is an incredible lineup of musicians. This is really what you could consider a supergroup. I'm going to look at the time, so we're at 44 minutes. Okay, so yeah, we're doing good. We're going to go for about an hour and 15 minutes. 15. So this is effectively a supergroup. You know, Phil Anselmo, as you know, very, you know, he doesn't need an introduction if you know who he is. You know, singer Pantera. Pepper Keenan, as we know, from Corrosion of Conformity. Jimmy Bower from the band Eyehategod. He was a guitar player. And then Kirk Weinstein, guitar player, singer of Crowbar. So you have this connection of bands that are connected to Down. Each member is from another band. Like, just awesome. Like, you know, if you listen to Down, you then get to check out all the other bands that these musicians are a part of. And Patrick Bruder's their current bass player. He was in Crowbar for a little bit. He was also in a band called Goat Whore, which is, you know, like another metal band. I'm not super familiar with them, so I won't talk too much about them. But yeah, you can click on his link in the Wikipedia. You can look up the articles. So he's a seasoned bass player in other bands as well. Kirk Weinstein, like I said, singer, main creator of the music of Crowbar, an incredibly heavy band. Maybe one of the heavier bands of all the bunch. Pantera is super heavy. We all know that. Corrosion of Conformity, yep, they're pretty heavy. Eyehategod, yep, heavy band. Crowbar. If you ever see Kirk Weinstein, like physically look at him, he's a large man, and the music sort of represents that, especially his vocal style. Like it's deep and guttural. I won't even try to replicate it, but yeah, it's cool. Like large, heavy riffs. Kirk Weinstein, amazing of metal vocalist and metal guitar player. So. Just like the lineup itself is just yeah. I'm speechless. You know, when I first heard Down, it was like, whoa. So it's everyone's a seasoned recording artist, basically. They all know how to write good metal songs. So this can't not be good. And it's the best. I love Down, you know, just as much as Corrosion. Maybe I like Down a little bit more sometimes, because their first two albums are really good. My first experience with Down was the song "Stone the Crow," and I heard that on loud, and it was like, you know, it's kind of a southern rock almost kind of feel, but it was super heavy. That's their style. So, you know, there's a lot of sludginess to it, but there's a lot of southern rock influence, which, you know, kind of falls in line with Pantera, falls in line with the other bands, because these are all people from you know, the southern parts of the United States. So there's almost I guess maybe we'll use the word pedigree again. Maybe that fits, or, you know, colleagues, influential colleagues, maybe. So that's a really cool thing. So these bands all kind of come from a southern type of sound, and to me they all kind of come from the Black Sabbath tradition. So again, I'm glad we talked about Black Sabbath in the last episode, because if you listen to Down and some parts of Corrosion and other bands, like it all points to Sabbath. Like if you listen to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, the album, you're going to see a lot of parallels to the album structure on some of the Down records, or even the Corrosion records. So they're wildly influential, but it's not it's not plagiarism or anything like that, or just riff stealing. It's true influence. And what I mean by that is that you can clearly hear that they're influenced by Black Sabbath, but they're not. It's not a crutch. Like they are. They're creating the unique songs that sound totally different, but you can still sense that, yeah, they're part of that. Like they put themselves into that history slot of being affected by Black Sabbath, and a lot of metal bands are, and that's just, you know, that's a really cool thing. You know, for me, when I know a band has a Sabbath tendency in a way, I kind of like it a little bit more. That's just me personally, though. You know, that not everyone is like that, but I love my Black Sabbath. They're a great metal band, or I guess early metal band. Yeah, I guess we could say. I'm just gonna have some water. getting dark out, but that's okay. I got some light in here. Okay, so Down, Pepper Keenan. So Pepper Keenan, that is basically lead guitar along with Kirk Weinstein. So it's dueling guitars. That's a really cool thing too. Bands that have two guitar players have unique sounds that are possible instead of just one guitar player. And so that's something to really keep in mind. You know, I can keep talking about ensemble for maybe for a long time, because that really matters. You know, when you know a band that has two guitar players, you sort of have an impression already of what it could sound like. And is it heavy? Oh yeah, it's absolutely heavy. The first NOLA album, 95, NOLA, N-O-L-A, which is short for New Orleans, Louisiana, which is where most of these guys are from and where it was recorded. Oh, actually, let me check to see if that was the case. Maybe it wasn't recorded in New Orleans. See, oh no, it was. Yeah, sorry. It says ultrasonic. I don't know if that's accurate. I should check the liner notes, the physical liner notes, because it says here Kirk Weinstein performed the bass on the first album. I don't know if that's accurate, because Todd Strange was credited as the bass player for the album. So maybe I'll go look at that. But that's another thing too. You can go and take a peek for yourself too, to maybe go on a treasure hunt of fact or fiction for that too. So that's another little Easter egg I'll leave you with. Was Todd Strange the performing bass player on their first album? I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, and so after Todd Strange was in the band, Rex Brown came in and did bass from 1999 to 2011, so he was in the band for quite a while, and he arguably changed the sound, I feel, for the next album, Down to A Bustle in Your Hedgerow. That's a nice little hat tip to Led Zeppelin there, right? So again, I'm glad we talked about Zeppelin already, because now I'm showing you in real time that, you know, the effect of these bands. You know, this album wouldn't exist in the same way had Led Zeppelin not existed. So Down sort of evolved their sound a little bit. It got heavier on Down 2 for some of the songs, but it had that Led Zeppelin rawness to it, or I shouldn't say rawness, because you know, Led Zeppelin at the time were trying to make high fidelity recordings, but the way Down went about the recording process for their second album was, I feel, is unique. You know, they did it in a barn, from what I can tell. And again, this is all stuff I'm reading from the Wikipedia article, but you know, this is stuff I've heard in interviews too, so I feel that it is true, but you know, go check for yourself. It was done in a barn, Phil Anselmo's barn, basically. You know, they just brought in a bunch of recording equipment, made the album. So it has that element there. You can hear the space, you can hear the physical space on the album in the way the tones are sonically arranged. So it's a very sonically advanced album, I would say, and it definitely plays into that. You know, you could tell that they were trying to do something specific with the rawness to tap into, you know, the previous century, like, you know, the 70s style of recording, Led Zeppelin 4 basically, and there's some songs on there that all kind of connected into the flow of the Led Zeppelin 4 album too. You know, there's a let me see, Landing on the Mountains of Medigo, the last song. You know, it's like an acoustic. It has it's not a heavy song, like there's acoustic guitars in it, and you get like softer songs like that. So the album takes you on quite a trip of tonality, I guess you could say, and different dynamics. Makes for an incredible album. Sonically heavy too, like the dueling guitars of Kirk and Pepper, just amazing. And then Rex Brown's bass playing. I've always really liked Rex Brown's bass tone and his playing style, because when he does a unison playing with the guitars, his tone is so, it's so crunchy and good that it creates just this sonic texture that I really love. And so to me, that's one of their, I think that's one of their best, you know, for that reason. And you know, there's a whole ton of incredible songs that I don't want to ruin it for you, because when I got to experience this album and I got to sort of the deeper cuts, it was like, whoa, oh my god, it keeps getting better and better. So I don't want to talk about that, because I want to leave that as a surprise for you, because if you haven't heard it, you're in for just an incredible treat. I can't go back and relive that. I'm stuck where I am, just appreciating it through time. So yeah, go check that out. And so after that, they basically toured, and then they did another album in 2007, Down 3, Over the Under. For me, that was not as good, because I think they peaked on Down 2. And then for this, they sort of had to stand in their own shadows in a way. Great album, all things considered, but it didn't have the effect that Down 2 had on it for me. But still a great album. I highly recommend it. A lot of the songs on that are super heavy. I should go listen to that more and maybe relive it and check it out. And so after 2007, so yes, think about the tour life cycle that we talked about. So 2002, okay, so you go on tour for maybe a year, take some time off, write another album, the other band members can do other things, and then another album 2007. That's 5 years later. And so, yeah, tour cycle, go out and promote it. Now, a very cool thing happened, which kind of connects to what I was talking about, Corrosion, and how, where are we at the time? 56? Okay, yeah, sorry. So another cool thing happened in 2010, where they did a Diary of a Madman, which was like a live recording. At that time, they didn't have any new material. They had done Down 3, and it's been a few years. And so they weren't sure if they could go back on tour and be successful without new product. But they proved everyone wrong. That live recording is sort of proof of it. And Corrosion, they did the same thing many years later, go on tour with no new product and absolutely just take the world by storm. And Diary of a Madman is sort of, I guess, the first example of them doing it. And so, Pepper's in the band, right? So maybe that's where the idea came from. It's just the reputation of the band is so strong, right? Down is no exception. They have their diehard fans, and they support them, and that's pretty much what happened. And it also was a documentary too, an interesting documentary that looks at the lifestyle of the band too. And if we talk about Reed Mullin's passing, as well as just putting the passing of musicians in a wider context, life on the road is difficult, and so watching that documentary reveals a little bit of that to use as the audience, or as a musician wanting to learn more about music and people in music. It shows you just the challenges, the actual physical, tangible challenges of being on the road and playing lots of shows night after night, dealing with the physical exhaustion of playing. Because Down is a commercial band, arguably. They're very popular, right? So they're going to play for a few hours. They're not just going to play for 45 minutes or an hour. Like they're going to go for a good amount of time, give people their money's worth. And that, they have their ethics about them, I guess, in that sense, or they have their, I'm not sure what to call it, their standards of what is a good performance. The members of these bands, I trust them wholeheartedly that if I was to go see them live, they're going to deliver a good live product. Because there are bands out there that there's no need to name any of them, that it's questionable whether or not that the live product will be as good as it can be. But with these people in this band, no, there's never been a shadow of a doubt that this group can deliver, and they do. So the live album Diary of a Madman kind of proves that too. And again, it connects into music history. Diary of a Madman, Diary of a Madman, right? Ozzy Osbourne. So these bands all connect these influences in so many different ways, right? So Ozzy has, he's sort of in the many degrees of metal. So that name kind of is sort of a tip of the hat to Ozzy's Diary of a Madman album, Black Sabbath, all that stuff. It all connects in very cool ways. So you have that, and then lots of other stuff happened with the band. Let's just look at their timeline, because this is really cool, because I can actually look at the timeline right now, because all this is really cool. I like this information, knowing who leaves the band, who comes in, dates like that, because it tells you something. So there was a period of time where Kirk Weinstein was not the guitar player of the band. A guitarist named Bobby Landgraf played guitar with him from 2013 to 2019. So for a good 6 years, he was able to record one of the EPs, Down 4 Part 2. And so this is cool. Instead of releasing a full album, which they could have done in probably around 2012, they released 2 EPs, basically, or extended plays, you could say. So they did Down 4 Part 1 in 2012, which had 6 songs, about 33 minutes worth. That's funny, because that's almost a full-length album in like the 70s. Think about that. And then they did, hold on, let me go back to the discography. So they did Down 4 Part 2 in 2014 with another 6 songs, about 36 minutes worth of music. And so that actually featured Bobby Landgraf, with guitar. That was a really good album. I like that, because it's got a song called We Knew Him Well, which is an interesting name, I guess, because it can sort of mean many things for people. It can mean almost like a tip of the hat to Kirk, who's not in the band at that time, because he was doing Crowbar reunion. Or maybe it could mean like We Knew Him Well, maybe referencing Dimebag's passing, because that's part of Phil's life, right? So that's part of Phil's personal experience being with Dimebag, Pantera. Very, very cool song. And then Conjure, which is like a really dark Black Sabbath-y type of song. Conjure is Southern magic, basically. I guess African roots magic transplanted. We can use the word Diaspora again. The people moving from Africa into the North America over long periods of time move their traditions and magic. That's how magic traveled over into the southern states. Conjure is that. Very cool song. So very cool lyrics as well too. Two great EPs. So that's a neat commercial decision in a way, I guess, because they could have just combined those songs and made a full album, but they did 2 EPs instead. I think that's pretty cool. And so that kind of covers most of Down. They haven't released an album since 2014, but that's that's okay, because when you look at the band, it's a supergroup. These members have other projects going. Pepper still with Corrosion of Conformity. Jimmy Bower, still busy as a multi-instrumentalist. That's another cool thing. The drummer of Down is a guitar player, right? So Jimmy Bower is immensely talented as a multi-instrumentalist who plays in multiple bands with Phil as well. Superjoint Ritual, Eyehategod. So Superjoint Ritual is more like it feels more punk to me, more aggressively punk, really heavy. And so you get all these other bands that now connect either through Down or Corrosion of Conformity in other really cool ways. Where are we? About an hour and 3 minutes. So we'll try and wrap this up, I guess, pretty soon. But it's good that we got as far as we did from Corrosion of Conformity into Down to reveal the supergroup possibility of experiencing new music through the supergroup members. Go and listen to Crowbar. Check out Superjoint Ritual. Eyehategod. You can look at Patrick Bruder's group that he was in before Down, which is a Goat Whore. He was on one of the Crowbar records in 2011, Sever the Wicked Hand. He's got a lot going on too. So he's also in another group called Gasam Yasma. I just ate that word, basically. that doesn't have a lot of information on it. But he's a busy bass player too, right? So each member has all these other groups that they're part of, and so that's cool. So you kind of know in the back of your head that it's okay that Down's not producing music regularly, but that's because the members got other things to do, right? So it's another example of a group not playing into certain cycles of album production / touring, right? So they definitely don't fit into the Nickelback's patterns of releasing an album every 2 or 3 years. Down is on their own schedule, period. That's a cool thing. You have to really respect that, because when they come back, they're going to have something very cool to say. So that's a cool thing. Corrosion, Conformity, Going Against the Grain, all these bands, what they have in common is that they're on their own timeline. They have their own agendas. They're not pandering to anyone of higher power. They know their audience. They know that their audience are diehard fans, and they respect that completely. They're not going to release products, albums that are subpar. They're going to do their absolute best to respect the audience by giving them a good product. And again, like I said, I trust these bands, these musicians, that if I was to go see them live, I firmly believe that they would deliver an incredible live performance. So that's really cool. That's something that when it comes to music industry commercialization, commercial theories and stuff, I don't know where I'm going with that, but yeah, these bands, they do whatever they want, and I love that so much. That's what makes me really appreciate these bands, is that they're doing what they really want. They're not pandering to anything. They're going to make music that inspires them first, and because it inspires them and makes them happy, it's going to make the audience happy, and the audience will feel that. And that's how the cycle really should work. You can always tell when a musician or an artist or a group is pandering to their audience, trying to give them what they want. Instead, these bands have always given their audience what they actually need, which is something new, something different. Corrosion has sort of evolved their sound, but it's for their benefit. The band has to be energized by their new music, so it does change. Crowbar changes a little bit too. All these other bands have evolutions in their sound, and it's necessary. You have to evolve and change as a band so that you can still maintain your own artistic interest as the creator of the music, because if you don't, your music stagnates and your fans hear it, and then you start trying to predict what the fans should want, and then once you start doing that, I don't know, you're in a losing battle. Excuse me. 1 hour and 7 minutes. Okay, sorry, I had the hiccups or a little bit of gas from the sandwich. Yeah, I guess we'll be able to wrap this up pretty soon. But yeah, I guess that's the last major point I can really hit home is branding and all that stuff. I'm trying to figure that out myself too. As with New Day Review, like, what do I do with my brand? What am I? I still don't really know what this even is or what it should be. The only thing I have is just the truth that I can create. For you, the audience. I can. The only thing I have that I know is that will work is just for me to be truth, say the truth, speak with candor, and stick to it that way. I don't know what this really should be, but I'll go against the grain in the same way as these bands. I'm not gonna do something that is popular. I guess in a way I did the podcast because of that, but that's not, I don't know, that's just a format. I think it's just another platform, but I don't know if you'll find me trying to predict what an audience wants or doing something that's popular. There's a lot of content, videos, there's edutainment content that teaches you how to be a content creator through content, which is very strange. It's very metaphysical. And it gives you ideas, like, what sort of videos to use to make and all that. Well, I don't know. Like, just do. I'm doing this because I enjoy talking about these awesome bands, because I get to talk about my favorite bands in this, and I get to kind of jam on this in an academic way, almost, and keep it as a record. That's why I'm doing it. And on top of this, I'm also trying to turn this into a, I guess, business maybe, or to be a content creator, make money from that. That's another reason. But apart from that, I can't really think of anything else, because if I was in Corrosion, that's sort of almost the same thing. I want to make music that I want and get paid for it. I would see that being consistent throughout all the other bands. They want to go and make an artistic product, perform it, and be compensated. And believe me, they are compensated for that. They're well-to-do, those bands, of course. Me, not so much, and that's okay. This is just the beginning. Hour and 10 minutes. We got a few more minutes before we wrap this up. So I'm going to leave. I've made a playlist on Spotify for all these bands. We didn't talk about Eyehategod too much, or Superjoint Ritual, or Venom, or, I mentioned White Zombie, I think, some other groups. But I made a playlist of all the Corrosion of Conformity albums, all the Crowbar stuff, all Superjoint Ritual, all the Down, all Eyehategod and Pantera. So I made a playlist that has all the available music on Spotify, so that you can go listen to those groups. Because I think you'll really like it if you're into metal, and if you haven't experienced these bands, then you're definitely in for the treat. And by experiencing any one of these bands, you'll then get to experience all the other bands because of the relationships that they're all connected into. So that's going to be pretty cool, and I'm going to go listen to that myself. I'm going to listen to Eyehategod a little bit more, because I'm not super familiar with their music. Superjoint Ritual, I think, has a newer album out. I'm not 100% sure. So they do have a recording in 2016. So I haven't heard that. I've only heard their early 2000s a record, Use Once and Destroy, and a lethal dose of American hatred. Like, oh my God, that's a heavy album. Yeah, you should have a go at that one. That's pretty cool. We may talk about these bands more in the future, because they are influential to me personally. And again, they have a clear connection back to those 5 original progressive rock, early metal, blues, progressive blues rock. The Zeppelin, Floyd, Black Sabbath, King Crimson, Genesis. They all have a connection back to those groups in some way. So they're all very much connected. So it's very possible that we'll talk about any one of those bands in the future. And as far as the next episode, I'm not really sure what we could talk about, because there's a lot of other things that we could talk about. Rex Brown as a bass player is pretty cool to talk about. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll talk about Venom. Maybe not. I don't know. The new wave of British heavy metal. That's pretty cool. I talked about world music in the first podcast. That I guess I was sort of talking about world music in a way to reveal the complexity of the genre name, because I don't know, it is very complex. I was talking about Sepultura being technically fitting into North American metal, yet they're not a North American band. So there's those things that you can end up talking about within that grand topic. But I don't know, maybe we will. I mentioned I guess I'll leave a joke at the very end, because I mentioned in the first podcast that I listen to everything, because I kind of do. Like, I listen to a lot of different types of music. But when someone says, "Oh, I listen to everything," that usually means that you listen to everything but country and rap. It's kind of I don't know if it's a joke or not, but that's kind of funny. So I'll leave you with that. I guess I'll say that for me, I do listen to country and rap, but only when it's good, and it's easy to tell. I think when you listen to music, it's easy to tell when something actually has heart and passion. Because these metal bands that we've talked about throughout the whole podcast, all of it has heart, all of it has passion, so you can hear it. And for the country genres and the rap, hip hop, all those genres, there's amazing music in those genres. But there's also a lot of lemons. There's a lot of duds too. So that those genres they get a bad rap, and so that's why that joke exists, or that meme or stereotype, I guess maybe. I like everything but country and rap. So I'll leave you with that. It's good when it's good, and you can tell. All right, we'll end it off there. So appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time.